Photography is a lot like writing. You gotta learn how to find your voice. A lot of people try different things to find their niche, and that's really what I want to talk about today. The things that you do to find your niche. And the best way I can explain it is talking about the 5 things that I've shot and realized I hate shooting after shooting them. Thanks for coming back to my channel. As you probably noticed, the audio is a lot better. I actually invested in a microphone, so hey, forgive the first video and hopefully you like this one. I love the idea that we're all able to go out there and learn how to shoot as many things as possible. The idea of being a photographer is that you do have the science to know how to shoot this thing or that thing and keep, growing and getting better at certain things. In that time, it's not surprising that you're going to grow and find yourself a little niche that you like to shoot. You see a lot of photographers out there who are well known for some of the things that they shoot. You got your portrait photographers who are out there who take incredible headshots and do great studio work. You have some product photographers who are out there and they're doing great work with different kind of lighting and actually knowing how to make props look more appetizing for you to want to buy them. But that's developed over time and doing a niche of that kind of photography for a while. I want you all to go out there and shoot as many things as possible. I want you to go out and experiment and see what you do when you don't like to shoot. The thing is, I don't want you to get taken advantage of. If you don't think that you can do the job well, it's okay to not take a payment for a job to learn something and try to build your portfolio. But at the same time, I don't want you to get taken advantage of. So let's kind of talk about, the growing pains of finding your voice and finding what you actually want to shoot by looking at some of the things I realize I just don't want to shoot anymore. Starting this list at number 5, we're going to talk about live event photography. I put live event photography in at number 5 is because it's something I still would shoot today. So when you think about live event photography, you're thinking probably these great photo shoots of Aerosmith or some other band out there just really rocking it on stage. And it's an invaluable skill to have. You want to be able to get out there, know how to see the lights on stage, and actually capture that with all the emotion so your audience sees what you saw. It's invaluable to know how to shoot these live events because even in my day job doing news photography, I have to show people on the podium, giving a speech, or even some kind of a live event where they're doing something and my figurehead comes out. And knowing how to shoot a live event has helped me across the board. So that's why I don't really discount it as something that I'll never shoot again, but something I really wouldn't want to shoot to make my money. The main reason it's something hard to start off with is that you're going to have to shoot mostly local bands and smaller venues to really get your name out there. Over the last few years in Japan, just because I didn't have the access, I actually did a lot of shooting on a few local bands and I also went shooting a few comedy shows, which was a great experience. I got to work with some good people and I got to shoot a lot of cool things with a lot of really top tier access. The big disadvantage about shooting these kind of events was that I was always a second thought for most of the people who handled the planning of the event. A lot of people go out there these days with a GoPro and put it in a corner and say, hey, I caught the whole event. I'll shoot it in 4K and I can punch in a little. These artists know the power of photography. They know that a good photographer is worth their weight in gold and that they can capture great moments and they can use that for future advertisements when they can't always just have a video up. I mean, even a headshot. I've seen comedy shows around Japan where my photos are still being used to this day to promote different comedians. You might get lucky and you might be the starting photographer for a grunge band that becomes the next Nirvana and they bring you up with them. And I want to get into more of like the actual commercial aspects of it, but for this, let's just talk about, just building your portfolio and we can move from there, okay? Shooting bands are a great experience. You go out there and you really get to integrate with this band and they're going to perform to you. Remember, the real thing about live events is that each event is a performance to the audience and they're going to play to the camera. So it's really easy to capture that moment. And that's why I say, if you want something to kind of get your, sink your teeth into and figure out what you want to shoot, shooting live events can really help you hone in and learn to stop, chimping and looking at your camera. You're actually in the moment and you're going to keep shooting. And that's what you should be doing. Next on the list is number 4, charitable events. Now, unlike most people, and I love charities, I want to go out there and I want to help. and once or twice a year I'll actually volunteer and go out and shoot a different charitable event. This is another great thing to shoot for a portfolio. It really gets you into uncontrolled action, and that's what you really want to have in your portfolio, where you have the access to be close enough but it's not rehearsed or staged. Now, like most things, we got to talk about the negatives of actually shooting charitable events. And it's not even the event itself, it's the people who control it. Over the years, I do about one charitable event a year, and I usually have to work with some kind of public affairs or public relations person that needs a photographer. This can normally go one or two ways. One, they really appreciate you and they give you, your accolades for doing this good work. Not that you should be doing it for that. But then you'll also get the other side of it, where you have someone who's just really taking advantage of you. One of my worst experiences was in San Diego, where I actually volunteered to work with an organization. The PR person actually reached out to me. She's like, "Oh, I've seen your work. I like what you do. Would you mind coming here and shooting this event for me?" And for that, I was like, yeah, I will happily give my services to your event, because I want you to take the money of that organization and put it towards the good work, and I don't need you to pay me. That was fine. When I went there, the whole event was disorganized. They had reached out to me and like 4 other photographers. So there I was with 4 other photographers, and they were just like, "Hey, go shoot what you want." They had no plan. The real insult for the whole event was when I realized they had actually paid a photographer to be the official photographer, and that he wanted to curate my photos as well and put it all in his package to say, "Here's the organization." Now, I'm okay with working with a team dynamic, but that has to be discussed beforehand, and I have to really have control on what I'm releasing to the public, because every photo I put out there has my name on it. And the last thing I want is some guy I don't even know who's actually the photographer there to curate my work. What happened in the end was that photographer actually screwed the pooch on the whole thing. He didn't show up with any of the photos, or he just really took advantage of this organization, and that organization had to chase him for money later. And during that whole event, they called me and they're like, "Oh, we really liked your photos, we really wanted to use those," and I had to really curate it out myself. And all of this could have been saved if they had just done their research, hired a photographer that they trust, and actually probably made that photographer sign contracts to say, "This is what we expect from your work." Now, on the flip side of that, I have had great organizations that I've worked with. Me and a partner would go out there and shoot an event and give the photos to the persons. We even produced a multimedia video for them. And that organization was super happy with it. They sent us a little gift to say thank you and invited us back. And they even gave our names to future clients. And it was a really good win-win for both of us. I got to help the organization out, and I got to get my name out there. Next on the list is boudoir photography. Personally, I love boudoir photography, but I can also admit that I'm not very good at it. The thing about boudoir photography is it got ruined by the photography community, because you know who I'm talking about when I say that creepy old guy who's asking people, "Hey, can I take half-naked photos of you?" So I have a friend who actually shoots this kind of photography all the time, and he's so good at it that he has models coming to him because they know how good his work is. If you're sitting there trying to find your niche, go ahead and focus more about your studio photography. Know that you know how to pose a model with their clothes on, and then once you feel like you really have that, move on to boudoir photography. But when it comes to me and my niche and things that I want to do, I realize that I don't have the patience for it. I'm okay with it, but the level of work that it takes to do that on a daily basis, I have to have a whole setup and to have that work on a daily basis. Number 2, car photography. Let's go ahead and talk about car photography. It's really funny for me to sit here and say that I would really never shoot car photography again, as I just shot one recently, but I just don't like cars. Cars are super cool, and shooting car photography is very much shooting product photography. And if you're gonna shoot car photography, you gotta have a love for it. I was able to execute this last shoot, and it worked out really well. I had a great model, I had a great car, and I had a great location. The whole experience was okay, and I really liked doing it, and it was fun to shoot because it really didn't take a lot of mental space for me to do it. But it's not something I really want to do on a daily just because I don't have a love for it. Okay, that brings me to number 1 and the final entry on my list: weddings. There's not going to be a group of photographers out there that doesn't tell you that there's money to be made when it comes to weddings. If you have the skill for it, weddings can be super lucrative. I've heard a bunch of stories from bride magazines and actual wedding photographers talking about all the stresses that are associated with shooting a wedding. Now don't get me wrong, I think wedding photographers are immensely talented and I love everything that they do. But you're also talking to a guy who would rather have people shooting at him while he's taking photos than ever dealing with a wedding again. In my career, I've shot 2 weddings, and in those 2 weddings, one was okay and the other one was a total bridezilla situation. If you're gonna start shooting weddings, I always suggest joining a team and then shooting with someone who actually directs it and you just supplementing their photos. This is a great avenue for you to learn how to shoot these different events in very tricky light. As long as you know your camera and you trust in your ability, you should be able to do just fine doing this. Now, like I said before, weddings are super lucrative. A lot of people go out there and they make a lot of money by shooting weddings. But the real professionals out there, in my opinion, are the ones that actually shoot in groups and do this whole thing as a team project so they can divide the effort and actually make their client happy. But I want to bring this all back and just say these are 5 things that I really don't like shooting, but they're great niches for you to learn how to do your own thing and figure out what you want to do with your photography career. I really wanted to focus this on more of a, hey, you need to learn these things if you want to keep doing this work in photojournalism. But for the career people who actually do these things, there's a whole channel dedicated to that. And these guys are great and they'll actually tell you, hey, it's very litigious, there's money changing hands, and there's a lot of pregame to it. Maybe some people think I copped out by being a photojournalist and that I don't have to really deal with any of that. I can just go out there as long as I'm practicing the laws of good decency in photography. I can pretty much go out and shoot wherever I want without any questions asked, and the only person I have to answer to is my publisher. So anyway, I just wanted to thank you guys again for watching my video. You guys came back for round 2 and I really appreciate it. If you haven't seen my other video, it should be below or on the side over here. And one last announcement. Follow my Instagram. In the next week, I'm actually starting my little pilgrimage from Yokosuka, Japan, all the way down to Nagasaki. I should be putting out little mini videos as I'm getting ready to take this 2.5 week trip from here down to south. But I want you all to know that I'm going out and shooting this last little pilgrimage before I head out to DC. Most of the photos I'll be taking, I'll be having it on my Instagram, but you can also look out for a new zine that I'm going to be putting out about my whole 3 years in Japan. Hopefully you'll pick it up and you'll like what you see. In the meantime, thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys on the flip.